And we are rolling. What's happening, people? Welcome back to another episode of the Combat Chat. I'm going to be doing things a little bit differently, though, as I'd originally intended. I'm going to be doing a UFC 224 special, rather than kind of including it in my news episode that I was going to upload next week. So what the kind of plan is now is I'm going to do a bit of a longer episode, or kind of talk more about UFC 224 than I had originally planned. It was going to probably be about a 20-minute segment. It might probably now be towards the 30 to 35-minute mark. We'll see kind of how I go. Trains of thought I get led on. See where I am at the end of it. This does then mean that next week's episode, so don't kind of think this is next week's episode now, because it's not. It's going to be an extra episode as such, and so therefore you're getting double the amount of content and 2 shorter episodes in theory, because then that means the next episode next week won't be as long because it won't have this part in it, unless I edit it all together, and then you wouldn't know, but who knows. So first of all, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to kind of be working my way through the card from bottom to top, ending with the main event, kind of giving my thoughts on how I think it will play out, my tips on who I think will win. Again, these are just my tips. Please don't go and bet on them unless you agree with me. Even then, I have not condoned that. That is purely down to you and your own responsibility. But these are who I think will win, who I think will come out on top. Maybe where they could go potentially afterwards. Kind of depending upon how I think the fight will go. So again, it's all very theoretical. And just in generally whether I think it will be a good card or not. UFC 224's, looking at the card now on my computer screen, not the most exciting card to start on, but it's a start. So normally I would include the undercard, especially if there's someone on there that I like the look of. Not in that way, in terms of their fighting abilities. You tend to find that on the undercard you get the young up-and-comers, people that could potentially be champions in 2, 3, 4, 5, however long years. Or however many rather. Unfortunately, like I kind of, following on from what I just mentioned previously, not the best card for this. So, in this episode, purely for the sake of it being the first episode in this kind of special series, breakdown, preview, whatever you prefer to call it, I'm going to call it a breakdown because it is a breakdown of a UFC card. Yeah. We're not going to touch the undercard because looking at it now, there's not much there that gets me excited. I probably won't be watching the undercard. I'll probably just stick to the main card and go with that. And as I can imagine, quite a lot of people will stick to the main card unless they suddenly announce something huge for the undercard. Probably very unlikely, being that this card takes place while I'm recording this on the 3rd of May. This fight card takes place in 10 days. Very unlikely they're going to announce anything new now. Yeah, so we're going to get into it. We're going to start at the bottom of the card, work our way up, end of the main event, as I believe I just touched upon. So let's get going. Depending upon the kind of reception, bear in mind I only uploaded the first episode yesterday. It hasn't really had much of a reception yet, so I can't really comment on that. I can't really thank anyone for the reception it's received because it hasn't received it yet. It may have received it, this may just be it, and it may be a very low reception, which is probably more likely. But for those of you who did listen to it, did enjoy it, thank you very much for listening, thank you very much, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Let's get going. So, first fight on the main card, we've got Vitor Belfort versus Lyoto Machida. Now this is going to be a very emotional fight for a lot of MMA purists, purely because you've got 2 legends of the sport fighting in their home country. It's Vitor Belfort's, my pronunciation in general is very off, I apologise. Not much I can do about that. Being from Bristol in the UK, we do have a funny voice. According to many, I don't hear it, but according to many people I've met who don't come from Bristol, that's the case. But yeah, Vitor Belfort's last fight, he's a legend, he's been fighting since UFC 12, which took place in 1997, so 21 years? My maths serving me correctly? Yeah, 21 years. It's a long time. It's longer than I've been alive. In fact, I was born in 1997, so he's been fighting the entire time I've been alive. Whoa. Yeah, that's a pretty awesome stat when you put it like that. It's going to be missed. It's a shame he went through his TRT phases where he's roided to the gills, as Brendan Sharp would say. And looking at the way he is now, that's really had a negative effect on his body in the long run, unfortunately. And he obviously is not the Vita Belfort of old. But it'll be nice to see him go out. I would like to see him get a win. But then again, it doesn't really put over Machida, because Machida's come out and said he wants another title run. He believes he has this in him. And if Vita Belfort was to beat him and then walk away, it leaves Lyoto in a really bad position. And you tend to find when fighters have one foot out the door and their heart's not completely in it, you tend to see that reflected into the octagon. So I'm going to go with the Machida win here. I think he's going to get it by decision. I feel like, based on the styles, Machida's obviously very unorthodox with his karate base. I think he does get it done, but I do feel like it's going to be a very kind of slow-paced match. He's going to be very calculated with the way he attacks and the way he strikes. Just knocks my mic again. I'm on a roll. He's going to be very patient, and then that's for sure. He always has been. And very kind of creative, as I just kind of said. So I think he gets it done with a decision, which, I mean, is not the worst way for Vita Belfort to walk out. But yeah, that's that fight. Machida decision. Then we're moving on to another Brazilian with John Lineker, Hands of Stone, versus Brian Kelleher. Again, sorry about the pronunciation. I mean, it's in the bantamweight division. What I found interesting, just knocked my Jesus. What I found kind of interesting looking at this card, and I didn't actually realise it until I looked at it a bit more deeply, was that Brian Kelleher's not actually ranked at the minute, whereas John Lineker's ranked number 6. So it's quite surprising, because you don't normally see that. When you see an unranked competitor, you tend to see them fight someone ranked 10 or higher, or lower, 10 to 15 should we say, for the purpose of ease and lack of being able to communicate it properly. However, he did come off of a recent really good win where he beat Renan Barão by decision, and obviously he's not as good as he was when he held the title, but it's still Renan Barão, and you've got to take that into consideration. But I think he gets it done against Lineker as well. No, I mean, Lineker's such a hard hitter. He hits like a truck at 135. Especially when he was down like at 125. Jeez, he must have been an absolute hammer. Well, hence his nickname, Hands of Stone. But for me, I think Lineker gets this done in the first round with a TKO. I do think he stops him. He just hits so hard. It's just, you can always he always has that in his arsenal. That if, he could be losing a fight and he could still go into the third round and knock the guy out, and that's always something useful to have in your arsenal as a fighter, because you can rely on that and you can turn a fight around just like that. And I don't think that's how this fight will go, but I do think that Lineker does stop him in the first round and he'll move his way up the rankings there. I think it'll be a pretty solid performance. And looking at the rest of the card now, I do think this will be fight of the night as well. It's definitely a contender. I mean, you can probably just read the nicknames of both the guys and come to that decision yourself, considering John Lineker's Hands of Stone and Brian Kelleher is nicknamed Boom. So that's probably quite a likely scenario. But it'll be an exciting fight. John Lineker always is exciting. He always, puts in a good performance. And so, I mean, he's had a really tough run as well, actually. When you look at his kind of UFC run and who he's fought, he has had it quite harsh. And to be only ranked number 6, I mean, looking at the guys he's fought, he beat John Dodson via decision. Split decision, it was a close fight, but I do think it was the right one. And then he lost to TJ Dillashaw, who, must I remind you, is the current champion. Losing to Dillashaw, especially in a decision the way John Lineker did, it's not exactly something to consider as a bad performance, because Dillashaw can arguably be, like I touched on in the previous episode, he could easily be the top 5 pound for pound fighters in the world, in my opinion. I think he's very underrated. And, John Lineker definitely putting a shift against him. And then, he's coming off of a victory against Marlon Vera, who I'm not going to lie, I'm not aware of this guy. But he got the job done. But I do think in this he's going to get the job done again. And I do think he stops Brian Kelleher in the first round. And it's just, that is that. So we're going to move on to Mackenzie Dern versus Amanda Cooper. And now, for those of you who are aware and kind of follow Joe Rogan and that, is that Mackenzie Dern is obviously the woman who was, I'm not going to say suffered, because I'm on Joe Rogan and Joey Diaz's side of this in terms of I don't feel like what he said is offensive. I just feel like it's very similar. It's very much the comedic kind of base that Joey Diaz has, and he wasn't offending Mackenzie Dern in my opinion. But for those of you who aren't aware, you can go and Google it yourselves. I'm not going to touch on it anymore here. But he basically just kind of tweeted something that some people thought was offensive, and I personally didn't feel it was. But anyway, back to the card. Mackenzie Dern's 6-0. She's undefeated. She's got very good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So, do I think she utilises that in this fight? I don't think she does. I mean, she's going to take it to the ground, that's for sure. She normally does. But I don't think she gets a submission here. I do think this goes to a decision. Amanda Cooper's shown she's really powerful and explosive with her striking, but I just don't think she gets it done. I think Mackenzie Dern's probably a bit too big for her. They are similar sizes, but I just feel like her ground game and her control of the grappling is definitely going to kind of, affect the fight and affect the direction it goes. I don't think she's going to, Amanda Cooper I'm referring to here, is going to be able to utilise her striking ability. So yeah, I'm going to go with a Dern decision here. But neither of them are ranked, so it's not going to have an impact on the rankings for the women's strawweight division. I think the winner of this will probably get ranked, especially if it's Mackenzie Dern if she wins this 7-0. Then I can see her breaking into that 10 to 15 kind of range on the women's rankings. But it's not going to affect the title picture at this moment in time anyway. Maybe she could be a title contender further down the line. But right now, that is as far as it's going to go, in my opinion. So we're already on to the last fight before the main event, which is actually a fight I'm very much looking forward to. It's, for those of you who know, it's Ronald Souza, Jacare versus Kevin Gastelum. Now, I'm very interested in this fight. Both of them are very, very accomplished in terms of being surprisingly well-rounded, in my opinion. Both have shown they've got knockout power. Both are quite comfortable on the ground as well. Both are coming off first-round knockouts as well. Both of them are coming very similarly to this. Kevin Gastelum's obviously coming off of that first-round knockout of Bisping, which was quite heartbreaking to see as someone from the UK and someone who's a big fan of Michael Bisping. But then before that, they both lost their fights as well. So, but then again, Souza did lose his fight to. Who did he lose his fight to? He lost his fight previously to his first-round knockout of Derek Brunson. To Whittaker, wasn't he? He lost it to a second-round knockout to Robert Whittaker, and he's the champ at the minute, so you can't. That doesn't really. Obviously it counts, but you can't knock that against Jacare because Robert Whittaker's an absolute animal. This is a tough one to call. This is a really tough one to call. Betting odds, if I remember correctly, last time I checked, Jacare was the slight favourite. It's a tough one to call because both don't really have any proper momentum behind them at the minute. Both of them, I could argue this is probably going to be one of the closer fights on the card. I'm going to go with Jacare. I think Jacare gets it done by submission. I think he's going to go for it. Third round submission, maybe towards the end of the round as well. I think maybe a bit of fatigue on Kevin Gastelum's side could potentially be his downfall. But But I mean, apart from that, it could be very much be considered a toin, whatever a toin is. It could very much be considered a coin toss. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go Souza on that. I really think so. I think Souza gets the job done. I think afterwards as well, he probably gets the title shot. If I look at the rankings for the middleweight division, I mean, ahead of him's Romero, and he's already booked to face Whittaker at 225. Below him's Rockhold and then Weidman. Yeah, I mean, I can't see if Romero wins, you're not looking at Rockhold fighting Romero, because that just happened. And Romero beat him quite convincingly. Depending on the fight, you could potentially see a Whittaker getting the rubber match if Romero's to win. Do they turn that round straight away, or do they put in Jacare to face Romero straight after? It's a difficult one. It's difficult because obviously Jacare lost to Whittaker prior, as I just mentioned. And so, I feel like if Whittaker wins, I don't feel like Jacare gets the title shot here. I feel like Rockhold might leapfrog him and get in. But then that doesn't make any sense either. Because Romero beat Rockhold, and then Whittaker beat Romero, why would they send him Rockhold? This is quite difficult to work out. They've almost all beaten each other. Bisping's not in contention. Obviously, if Jacare beats Gastelum, he's not in contention. I think if Jacare wins, I think he could potentially be looking at... No, because, I mean... I think if... This is what I'm going with. I think if Jacare wins, I don't think he gets the title shot. I think Rockhold will probably leapfrog him if he doesn't go to 205 to face Alexander Gustafsson. If he does, then obviously Souza's your man, and he's going to jump in and get that title shot, I think. Especially if Whittaker wins, because they're not going to do Romero-Whittaker 3 after that. Unless you get Whittaker beats Romero, you could then potentially see Romero-Souza, because if my memory serves me correct, I don't believe we've seen that before. Let me just have a quick look. We last had it in December 2015, where Yoel Romero won by a split decision. So I think we see that again. I think if Whittaker wins, we see that again. And then I think if Rockhold doesn't go up to 205, I think we see Rockhold jump in and get the title shot there. That's my opinion on that. Unfortunately, if Gastelum wins, however, you can't write off Gastelum. I do think this is going to be a close fight. If Gastelum wins, I think he leapfrogs Weidman. It's difficult because obviously Gastelum has that loss to Weidman. I think we see Gastelum Rockhold if Gastelum wins and Rockhold doesn't go up to 205. That's what I think we see. Gastelum, if he wins this, he doesn't get a title shot. He doesn't. No, I just don't think. I don't think that's the kind of booking they'd go with. But yeah, that's my voice, and it's kind of come back full circle. Jacare gets it done. I think he gets a submission in the third round. But that's a close one. That's the closest fight in the card for me. And then we're on to the main event already. We've done this very quickly. Much quicker than I was expecting to do this, but we've got some other stuff we can kind of touch upon, and just some kind of general stuff I could talk about at the end. So Amanda Nunes versus Raquel Pennington. I've got quite a lot to say about this fight. I'm going to go right out there with my kind of pick for this fight. I think Nunes gets it done quite comfortably. I'll be surprised if this gets out of the second round. I think Nunes will knock Raquel Pennington out in the second round is my pick. Maybe the first. I can't see it going any longer than that. Unfortunately, I'm unbiased to this situation, but I feel like she's probably just too strong. She has such strong punches for a woman of 135 pounds. I think she stops Raquel Pennington quite comfortably, quite easily. I do unfortunately feel, and I don't like to say this because obviously they're all such high standards of mixed martial artists in the UFC, but I do feel like Raquel Pennington in this situation has very much is like a lamb being sent to slaughter. And I do really feel like this is to set up the Amanda Nunes versus Chris Cyborg fight. I mean, it does. I feel like as well, based on the business sense, I feel like the UFC are probably rooting for Amanda as well. I mean, if Raquel Pennington knocks out Nunes here, or even beats Nunes, I feel like that definitely means the UFC will lose out. Because, I mean, the money in the women's division right now, in all four divisions, because, I mean, if you include the women's featherweight in that, even though there's no ranking available for it, that is still, I suppose, its own division, despite the very few competitors within it. But the money fight right now in all women's competition in the UFC is the Amanda Nunes Cyborg fight. I want to see that. I know a lot of the MMA community wants to see that. I feel like if Pennington gets the job done here and kind of gets the upset, I feel she probably derails that train, and that's probably not what the UFC want. Yeah, like I kind of just said, I think this is to set up that fight. I think we're going to see Nunes stop Raquel Pennington in quite dominating fashion. And then I feel like we're going to see her call out Cyborg. Cyborg's not got a booking at the minute. I feel like this is quite a quick turnaround for Amanda as well. I feel like she calls her out, and then the Cyborg Nunes fight gets booked within a couple of months. Will it be for the end of the year? I could see it potentially being for the New Year's Eve, that kind of card, the one that's normally on December 30th. Could definitely see that coming out, and that would be quite a good fight. That would mark as well the anniversary of 2-year anniversary of Nunes knocking out Ronda Rousey, because I believe that was on the 30th of December card as well, a couple of years back. But yeah, that's what I think will happen there. I mean, it's going to be a fine card, I suppose. I personally, as a huge MMA fan, I enjoy pretty much all UFC cards that they put on. It's very rare I kind of finish watching one and think that was a waste of time. But I mean, I don't think much is going to surprise anyone here. I do feel like it's quite an easy one to call. Watch this now come right back around and bite me straight in the ass, and I get all of those predictions wrong, but hey, ho. Put my neck out on the line a bit, guys. So yeah, that's what's going to go down on May 13th. So not this weekend, next weekend. I'll be watching. Let me know if you guys are going to be watching it. It's going to be a good card. But yeah, that's all my picks for UFC 224. Now I want to touch upon something else quickly. And the thing I want to touch upon is just kind of more regard to each episode and the podcast itself. Obviously at the minute it's just me kind of doing this. I was wondering whether people would kind of feel more comfortable if I was to get guests on and kind of have more of a discussion around MMA, and kind of together we could break down cards with people I get on. That sounded weird. That sounded very, very weird. Not like that. People I invite to be on this podcast. And we could kind of break down cards together, give a kind of a matter of opinion, get it more of like kind of a debate. Because at the minute it's kind of just me talking to you guys listening. Whereas, you know, with that kind of extra person in the room, it does kind of allow for that bit more flowing kind of conversation. It does allow it to kind of lead off down other places and kind of other routes, and kind of get a bit more complex conversation going. So the minute is very much as me reading through a card or some news and kind of giving my opinion on that, and kind of where I think the direction this kind of news or card will go in, which I can understand. If now, obviously being it's quite a new thing, it might be alright for now, but I can see how in the long run it could get quite boring for people. So please do send me feedback over Twitter, DM me, leave comments, message me on YouTube. These go up on SoundCloud as well, called the same name, the Combat Chat. If you want to go over there and listen, download it. I believe the link will be in the description, so check it out. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this, guys. Thank you all for listening again. It's been quite short. It's been about 23, 24, 25 minutes, so it's not been too long. But I hope this gave you a kind of a nice insight into an upcoming UFC event. Let me know if you want me to continue doing this. I do quite enjoy it because I do quite like analysing It's not my mic again. What's that, like the fourth time now? Jeez. I do quite like analysing the cards and kind of looking at form and the matchups, comparing styles, kind of watching old footage and seeing how that went down when similar styles met. So, I quite enjoy doing this, but if it's not really going over too well, let me know. Look at me using WWE and pro wrestling terminology. But yeah, if it's not getting over, do let me know, and I'll kind of see what other content I can do on here. Finally, as well, just before I go, obviously I have many other interests in life other than combat sports. Let me know if you want to see something a bit different. Maybe if you wanted me to kind of talk about football potentially, or soccer to Americans, or even if it's just more current affairs with regard to the world in terms of news, general kind of topics of debate, because quite an opinionated person, so I could talk for hours about this, that and the other. So yeah, if there's other kind of content you'd like to see from me, I love doing this. I really enjoy the whole kind of creating of the podcast and all the elements that go along with it. So if there's other stuff you guys want to see, let me know. Drop me a message, see what other stuff there's kind of that you would like me to see bring to the table, and I'll try and do my best to bring that to you guys. But that is it for this episode. This has been the UFC 224 breakdown special preview, whatever it is. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed, guys, and I'll see you again soon. Probably next Thursday I'll aim for another upload, so that'll be the 10th, roughly. Don't hold me to that. Shit happens. See you in a bit.